The scope manually completes Form EC8D and EC40G2. A member of the State Collation Secretariat, sitting in close proximity to the scope, simultaneously captures what is presented from the Forms EC8C and the Forms EC40G1 on the Excel workbook, which shall be projected for everybody present to see. The projected Excel worksheet mirrors Form EC8D, and it is advisable to complete the dummy form EC8D before transferring to the original form, just to avoid mistakes and alterations on the original form. 6. At the end of the presentation by the local government collation officer, the scope and the secretariat that assist him cross-check the manually completed forms EC8D and the EC40G2 with the Excel sheets for accuracy. After all the presentations have been made and the scope is satisfied with the entries, the scope shall request the State Collation Secretariat to print out a copy of each of the Excel sheets as collated. Number 8, the scope shall cross-check the printed copies of the Excel sheets, sign and date them. 9, the State Collation Secretariat shall assist the scope to scan the two signed Excel sheets, EC8D and the EC40G2, into a PDF format. 10. The two scanned documents shall be emailed together with a soft copy of the Excel workbook to the chairman, but more specifically the collation officer for the presidential elections, using the dedicated email address provided, which is accessible only to him. 11. The scope shall take all the materials under adequate security to the National Collation Center located at the International Conference Center, which is the premises in which we are right now. And a gate pass has been provided to all state collation officers to facilitate their entry here. 12. On arrival at the National Collation Center, the scope reports to the National Collation Secretariat, where the manual result is cross-checked with what was emailed and queued for presentation. 13. Prior to the completion of all the required forms for the collation of the presidential election results, the returning officer for the presidential election shall display the blank forms, which I will do shortly. To facilitate the completion of the returning officer for presidential election should consider to facilitate the completion, the returning officer for the presidential collation should consider prefilling the states and party acronyms in alphabetical order. 14. The scope shall then be invited by the returning officer for the national presidential elections to make his presentation, which shall also be projected. 15. After the scope makes the presentation from Forms EC8D and the EC40G2, the returning officer for the presidential elections shall formally receive the originals of the forms. 16. The returning officer for the presidential election shall then complete forms EC8DA and EC40G3 using forms EC8D and EC40G2, which have been brought by the scope. 17. At the completion of all state results, the returning officer for the presidential election shall announce the votes received by the candidates and the political parties. 18. The returning officer for the presidential election then proceeds to compare EC8DA and EC40G3 to determine whether a declaration is to be made according to the law. And 19, if a return is to be made, then the collation officer for the presidential election shall complete Form EC8E and then declare the winner. This procedure is developed to guide the state collation officer for the presidential election as well as the returning officer for the presidential election. And we have followed this procedure up to this point. Here with us today are state collation officers from those states that have finished state collation and that have brought their result forms, which have been queued for presentation now. So before we proceed with the presentation of the results, I would like now to use the opportunity to show you the blank result sheets before we commence the process. Didn't. Scissors, maybe. Should have got the scissors.
Briefing journalists, observers, and all those watching from wherever around the world. You're watching Channels TV here, and we're beaming the pictures of the INEC chairman at the National Collation Center. The process we've all been waiting for is about to start right now. He walked into the hall a couple of minutes just before 2 p.m. The first thing we noticed was introduction of the party agents. All the party agents of the 14 presidential candidates got up to introduce themselves, and it would seem that all of them, for all 14 presidential candidates, were there. At about 2:03 p.m., that's some 3 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock, INEC chairman took the microphone. He introduced himself, went through the 19 specific steps in the procedure to where we've gotten right now, and it was quite a laborious one, but about now, he's about to pluck out the blank sheets, which is where the results that have been collated from the different states are going to be written, and he's about to show the press and the world the blank sheets. That's the point where we're at now. You can see him lifting up the blank sheets to show journalists, observers, party agents, and every interested party who is in the hall there the blank sheets upon which the results from the different states will be written. He's the chief returning officer for the presidential election, and he's taken over the microphone again.